Hey, everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. You may remember our guest here from a few weeks back, Dave Pulcinella. Amazing amateur bodybuilder. Had he been competing today, he would doubtless be a pro. He's turned it to fitness, coaching, all kinds of other things, educating, informing, giving a lot of good advice and opinions. His channel on YouTube is called Pulse Fitness. Pulse, like your pulse, not P-L-U-C like his name. Pulse Fitness and Bodybuilding. Please welcome all the way from, I believe it's a state called Delaware.
Delaware.
Yeah. I found out that's actually a state in the United States.
It's just a little blip on the map that you have to drive through to get from Pennsylvania to Maryland.
Dave Pulcinella. Dave,
thank you for that, Ron.
Yeah. So I'm curious. North American just happened. That's something you won. You won your class a few times, and back in those days, you know, that wasn't good enough to turn pro. Did you?
No, back then it wasn't. No.
Did you check out the masters classes, a 50? Where would you'd still be in the 50 and over, right?
Have I even gone to look at this show? I haven't. Yeah. No.
Good for you.
If I'm not in it, I don't give a shit about it.
Good for you, man.
And I haven't been in it since 07.
Okay. All right. Good for you. I wish I could be just as, I wish I could say the same, but I'm like, could beat that guy.
But you know what? You know, I mean, maybe I'll just go there for shits and giggles, but I haven't. I just haven't. I barely was aware of the fact that they were happening, to be honest with you.
About 3 weeks before he passed away, the late Jerry Ward, rest his soul, who I unfortunately never got to know that well. I wish I had.
Yeah.
Everyone who knew him has
really cool.
Had the highest regard for him. But he made a video. I had done a video responding to on Branch Warren's part to a Nick Trigili video, because Trigili said that Branch Warren is still way too big. He needs to downsize.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so I called up Branch and said, Branch, he didn't even know this is a few days later. He had no idea the video had been out.
Right.
He was oblivious. And he was going to do a video with me responding. And then at the last minute, he said, nah, you know what? I'm not even going to give him
justify it or dignify it.
Right. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to do it on my own. And maybe I shouldn't have done that. But so I did my video. And then Jerry Ward did a video. God, look how this goes.
Yeah.
His video was called Ron Harris Defends Branch Warren, Bigorexia. And he talked about how both Branch and myself suffer from bigorexia, how he used to, but he was able to downsize and get healthy before anything calamitous happened to him. And unfortunately, he passed away. He did have a heart attack and died. But, you know, he wasn't wrong. His video, he made a lot of good points. And if I'm being honest and look in the mirror, I'm like, you know what? He's right. Pretty much everything he said was right, dead on. So I want to define it first for people who are not aware. I believe this term was coined by Harvard psychiatrist Dr. Harrison Pope, who's done a lot of psychological, psychiatric studies with bodybuilders over the years. He's really the only one who.
What an amazing topic that must be.
Showed an interest in
rabbit hole.
So bigorexia, it's in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, DSM-5, which is a reference book for mental health professionals all over the world. So it's defined as a body dysmorphic disorder that triggers a preoccupation with the idea that your body is too small or not muscular enough. Listen up, people. See if any of this sounds familiar, guys. When you have bigorexia, you are fixated on the thought that there is something wrong with the way that your body looks. That can influence behavior. So symptoms are, okay, everybody, get ready. You're going to be like, oh my God, I have that.
You're about to describe me. I know it.
You're about to describe everybody watching this, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Spending hours at the gym, pushing your body far beyond its limits, then feeling compelled to return and do it again the very next day.
That's how it works.
Yeah, we don't train once.
That's the only way it works. It's not one and done and it sticks.
Following diets on a path to cutting weight and adding muscle that never seems to end. Yeah, obviously. Hating the body you live in and feeling like these perceived shortcomings of your body are equally clear to anyone who sees you. Now we're getting into the crazy stuff that I have to say, yeah, that's me too. When left untreated, meaning I guess you're not getting any therapy or psychiatric help, which probably some people should, bigorexia can escalate and lead to steroid misuse, okay, depression, thoughts of suicide. Obviously, that's the worst end of the spectrum. Other mental health conditions such as disordered eating and obsessive compulsive disorder may also play a role in this. And there's some debate in the medical community on whether this should be classified as simply body dysmorphic disorder, or if it has more in common with eating disorders or addictions. So we're not going to worry about that. We're not medical professionals here, but
I'm sorry, but can't that describe pretty much anyone who's trying to accomplish anything of a grandiose nature?
yeah,
Think about all the things you just mentioned, and they are all traits that someone who ends up achieving some great shit has in their head as the driving force for that thing.
yeah,
Now, we're not going to sit here and say they're all healthy. They aren't for bodybuilders, and they aren't for the guy who wants to be the CEO or the guy who wants to climb Everest. They're just not.
right.
But they are things that drive us, and they are, I think, a common thread for anyone who has achieved greatness, wants to achieve greatness, is figuring out how to achieve greatness. These are the things they do. They become obsessive compulsive. They pursue that to the detriment of all else.
Yep.
Micro focused on that. Relationships fall by the wayside. They're willing to take calculated risks, sometimes not so calculated risks. I don't know why we're aiming this at bodybuilding.
Here's my guess. My guess is, so let's use your example. Let's say it's somebody who they want to have some business that's $1 billion business, and they're starting from nothing.
You think they have a balance in their life?
These people, it's 24/7. You hear stories about they worked
No
20 hours a day. They slept on a piece of cardboard in the corner of their store. They lost relationships. They lost touch with children. You know, they were focused 100% on their goal. And at the end, the ones who reach that goal and they have this very successful business or product or whatever, people hail them and praise them and say, wow, that's great that you worked so hard for that. And I think it's because we, as a society, we're gonna give more validity to financial success than having this
than having
body.
big muscular body. Yes, that seems more trivial and more silly, more supercilious and ego driven. It's just I don't understand. You like that? But it's true, you know, and I get that. But you know, anyone and using that example again of the multi-billionaire CEO, there's always a price to pay. Whether you're the bodybuilder and you're going, you know, you have kidney issues, or you're dropping dead at 40, or whether you're the CEO has a nervous breakdown, ends up in a psychiatric hospital because he just became too obsessed with his goal, or you know, the downhill skier who ended up plummeting to his death, or the boxer in the ring who got knocked out and got killed in the ring because he just didn't want to quit, even though he felt like he should. He ended up getting pummeled to death. What is the price that you're willing to pay for what you want in life? And I think that oftentimes not doing the things that we're talking about when the description of bigorexia is the recipe for mediocrity, to be honest.
Yeah. So I think it's because we as bodybuilders, our obsession is focused on a physical appearance, a cosmetic thing. I think that's where a lot of the you know, the judgment comes from, because people don't understand, why would you even want to spend all that time, effort, money just to look like that, to look like this big muscular.
It's not for them to understand, just like it's not for me to understand why the CEO does what he does, or why Trump is driven how he is. You know what I mean?
Right. But let's talk about
I don't
health.
understand that.
I have to ask you, I can honestly say I've never been satisfied with how big I was, because I never got to be the size I wanted to be. I picked up the magazines.
Oh, I never came close.
See, that shocks me, because I looked at the magazines, and when I was a kid, I started looking at Lee Haney, Mike Christian, Gaspari, Barry DeMay, and I never ended up looking like those guys. I never was that big, and forget it. Now that they wouldn't even be anywhere near it. Can you imagine if my goal had been Big Ramy? I'd really be in a bummer. But
yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, think about the kids coming up now who are picking Big Ramy as their goal. Well, that's scary. That's a scary prospect.
I don't think too many of them are, though. I think that classic.
Yeah, I think it's. I agree with you.
Yeah, there are still kids.
It's just not relatable enough.
We still have the Nick Walker fans, a lot of young guys who there's a sizable amount of them, but let's use social media as an example real quick. Nick Walker has like 1 million followers. That's great. Chris Bumstead has 10 million followers.
Oh, wow.
So let's say Instagram is mostly young people. So if you're looking at who people emulate, who they look up to, I'd say they look up to that classic look. But Yeah, going back to what you said. Now you were like 270, 280 at your heaviest. You competed around 250. Am I right?
Those numbers are inflated.
Well, I mean, I
I
can't
was
be off.
about 260 at my biggest, and I would go on stage at like 220.
Okay. I mean, still the normal, you walk down the
I'm
street.
5'8", though. I'm not that tall.
Right. I used to be 5'8", but you walk down the street among regular human beings in a tank top, people were freaking out at you. I'm sure when you went out in public settings, I don't know if you were covered up all the time or not, but you must have gotten that reaction.
Not all the time. And they would freak out. And that was part of the appeal for me, was to be able to walk into a room and command attention without even opening my mouth, not having to say a word, just your presence. And that's something that I do miss. Yeah. And once you've had that, man, it's hard to live without that. It's hard to go back to blending in, man.
Yeah.
You're not nowhere near that yet.
Well, I mean, I am, because, I should.
Not.
No, I mean, I never got to that.
Do you not see yourself? What do you have, bigorexia?
I do have bigorexia. And I mean, I never got to be as big as the guys I was trying to get as big as. And I never, I pushed a good amount of steroids. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. I look back and I try to make a stupid excuse like, well, maybe if I'd used insulin, maybe if I'd used a bunch of growth hormone, I would have gotten. I don't know how much bigger I would have gotten. I don't believe that every human being is capable of getting as big as a big Rami. There is that belief.
Far from it.
People do believe that. There was do you remember GH15?
Of course.
Yeah. He used to claim that anybody could get the size of like a Nasser El Somebody.
No,
they might not be as pretty. It might be not the same shape and structure, but anybody, if they're willing to push the drugs and food, could get to.
Dude, I live this every day. I have clients, and have for the past 26 years, who we were doing all the gear, legit gear. We were doing all the food. I was monitoring them. They were definitely doing it. Their training might not have been the best, but they were pushing themselves in the gym, and literally nothing happened. Their bodies had two modes: fat gain and muscle loss. If they would diet down, they'd lose the muscle. If they bulk up, they gain fat. It was awful. So the genetic variances are humongous, and what a person can or cannot achieve, there's a gradation. There's a huge gradation.
Yeah. Do you believe that the denial of that reality is what leads a lot of people down this path of, let's be real, it is a mental illness? I believe to a small extent, I probably have a very minor mental illness, because I do look in the mirror.
Minor.
Well, maybe I like to think it's minor.
Look, when I first saw the Arnold book, Education of a Bodybuilder, and you know that pose that picture that's on the cover of that book, where he's on the Alps, the Bavarian Alps, and it's the side. That's all I wanted out of life, was to look like that. Little did I know on day one of that journey that it would never even come close to happening. I'm not built like that. I'm not 6 foot tall. I don't have the tiny waist, the mountainous biceps. The proportions that he had were 1 in a scabillion.
Right.
But I took that picture and I implanted it in the forefront of my mind, and I became as close as I could come to that. And at the end of the day, Ron, we have to settle for that.
Well, see, we've both known a ton of people who started out with that similar goal. I want to look like Arnold. I want to look like Dorian. I want to look like Ronnie. And obviously, none of these people ended up looking like.
Well, think about who we were picking as our role models, the best in the world, the best physiques in the world. And we had, I guess, average genetics, maybe a little above average, you and I both.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, we're not the genetic elite any more than I can. I sat down at the piano when I was 12 years old, and I just began to play it, because that's my thing.
Yeah.
And you could give somebody lessons for a decade and they still won't be able to play. So it's what you're born with and what you can nature and nurture.
Yeah. So I guess to make this even more personal with us, I get slammed all the time for being on more than TRT. Like, you're 50, I'll be 53 in 19 days now.
Okay.
People say I get shit on all the time, and maybe they have a point. You should only be on TRT. You're in your 50s. You stopped competing years ago. You have kids. You're a horrible parent. You're a horrible husband, because you could drop dead and leave these people without a dad, without a husband. And I'm very, very fortunate. Let's knock on some wood here. I come from some very hardy stock. I don't know
Yeah, me
why.
too.
My
Yeah.
mother's side, it's all from my mother's side of the
That means we
family.
get away with a lot.
I mean, I use this example all the time. I had two older sisters that were both heroin addicts. One was able to get clean because she was imprisoned and got clean and never went, and she never
Yeah, that's,
relapsed.
you're forced to. Yeah.
You're forced to. The other one never got clean. She died at 49, but she had already been a full-blown heroin addict since she was about 15 or 16 years old.
That's resilient.
She should have been,
That's resilient.
By any stretch of the imagination, she should have been dead many times.
Well, I started gear in 1988.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
and it's been pretty steady since then.
Yeah. And I mean,
not too much time. I mean, I tell we take 3 months off here, every once in a while, 6 months off.
Yeah.
But not any more than that. So hardy stock here as well.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to, when you get to our age and you're doing what you're doing. And I can't stand the fact that now at this age, when I post a picture, instead of people focusing on how good I look,
yeah,
they're more aiming their comments at, I don't know, just be careful, man. Yeah. You don't have anything to prove. Right. Stop trying to live in the past. And everything is negative. When you're young and you look good, you're just young and you look good. And everyone's like, yeah, dude, go for it. You look fucking great. But now that we're our age and we're trying to stay in shape and we're trying to fight this father time, it becomes this big shit show and people just shitting on you and trying to make you feel bad about what you're doing. And it really bothers me.
Because you're very transparent about what you use.
Always.
You don't have to break down your whole cycle, but it's far beyond TRT. Legit TRT is typically between 100, 200, maybe 250 milligrams of test.
It's nothing.
Sometimes they'll do a couple units of growth hormone.
My body wouldn't even notice that.
That's what I'm saying. When I've done that,
you go backwards.
I lose
everything.
I lose a lot of muscle, strength, this and that. It's not enough for me.
It's just like being completely clean.
Yeah, this is where I like to be, this level. And they say, oh my God, your chest level is 1,978.
Well, that's what you've trained your body to be now. Now we're at the point where, and this is what I tell people, you paint yourself into a corner with the gear. I said, once you achieve a certain level, you're going to have to go to that level again to get, and every time you achieve a new level, that becomes the new norm. Mm-hmm. So keep in mind, if you start off at, 2 grams of gear a week, you're going to end up at 10 grams at some point. However, if you start off with 500 milligrams to just test a week and run that until it runs its course, and you stop getting results from that, which is going to be a long time, and then slowly increase, you're going to get a lot of longevity out of it, and a lot more out of a lot less. But people never listen.
Well, let's give those people some credit, because even though they're being negative assholes, they do have a point that, your health, especially as you're into middle age, as we are, it should be a priority. You should be looking at, your lipid profiles, all that, your heart scans, which I do. And I'm assuming that you're on top of all that.
Oh, yeah, I have to be, man. But you and I both know that everyone has their poison. The person saying to me, oh, you really should get off the gear. You should is drinking a 6-pack every night.
Yeah.
Or doing something. Look at yourself. Look internally. Aim your look inside your soul and see what is the poison that you're partaking of. Because everyone has one. What is the thing that you do on a daily basis that's slowly killing you?
So a lot of the outrage comes from, we have had a bunch of deaths over these past 2 years, and I can't get into COVID and stuff because then they'll cancel my video and delete me from all social media. But
what's that tell you?
There's something going on. But
thank you.
There were cases. It's a lot of guys who were in their 40s that were maintaining as much muscle mass, and that's what the late Jerry Ward was saying about me. He says, this Harris guy hasn't competed in 9 years. I don't know if he had the number right, but it's been 9 years. He looks exactly the same. I said, well, I'm still on gear. I'm still training.
And we're going to until they're patting us in the face with a shovel.
So why is that? So as long as my health, I am paying diligent attention to my health markers and getting these testing. I'm not putting my children in jeopardy of becoming orphans. They're 20, almost 23 and 28 anyway. They're grown ass.
Right.
But
they're grown men.
I do understand that there are a lot of guys out there who are not paying attention to those. They're not getting the blood work. They're not getting the calcium scores, the EKGs. They're not doing all that. They just don't want to know. And those are the guys, a lot of them, they are dropping dead, or they are going into congestive heart failure or kidney failure or liver failure because they're ignoring their health, which it's a male thing. I think that's a
play devil's advocate, though. You could stay on top of your blood work and your calcium score and your this and your that and still be blasting gear and still drop dead with perfect, pristine scores.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what would you die of?
That's a good question. I don't know, but
because if you're gonna have
it has happened. It has happened where people had good blood work.
Yeah. Oh, I know the blood work, but you have to look at the blockage, your calcium, how much blockage you have in your arteries.
You know what's funny about that? I had my doctor at the hospital when I was in there. I asked him if I could run the calcium score, and he had no idea what it was.
Wow. Yeah, it's coronary artery calcium, CAC score. So that, or they do, I just was at my cardiologist like two weeks ago, had the EKG done. They said, the left wall is a little thicker, the heart's a little bigger, but that's very common for any athlete. I like to consider myself an athlete. We can all debate that if, I'm not a pro basketball
I never
player.
considered myself an athlete. I can't even get out of my own way.
I'm in a beauty pageant with muscles, but it's the fact that I don't think a lot of guys out there are on top of their health. And I think a lot of guys, especially if they're really focused, they're still in that stage where they're hell bent on getting to 300 pounds or whatever. They're not going to worry about that, especially if they're younger, because it's not going to happen to them. It's going to happen.
You feel invincible when you're young. You can't die when you're young.
It's true.
That's for other people, for older people. I see the Bigorexia, and I feel like there's like a couple branches that branch off that. Like, for instance, the female bodybuilders who become men and don't know it.
Yeah.
I think anything that happens gradually, really, really gradually, you don't see, can lead to this sort of phenomenon.
Mm.
So how many times have you seen it, Ron, where a woman's being interviewed and she's like, I just want to say I'm very happy I've maintained my femininity.
Yes.
And like, you maintained your what?
I mean, I'm
not got the bulbous growth nose,
we're not going to slam them, but I know exactly what you're saying. They have to have a wig because their hairline's up here, so they have to wear wigs.
Yeah.
The growth has made their nose this big.
The nose is all bulbous.
The brow is
see it because it happens so insidiously over time.
Yeah. That's how my gut got big. It happened like 1 little centimeter at a time. And I looked down, I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm going to have a baby.
That's also why everybody thinks they look younger than they do.
That's
the aging process is so gradual. You still think you look like you did when you were 20, but I'm here to tell you look every bit of 50.
Yeah, that's why we
how many times have you heard people be like, I know I don't look 50, and you're looking at them like, you look every goddamn bit of 50.
Luckily, I haven't heard too many people, because I'd probably be the asshole who said, yeah, you do. But so that's one branch. What was the other branch of Bigorexia that you were thinking of?
So the Synthol freaks.
There we go.
The Synthol freaks.
Glad you brought that up.
Arms up to you, because they don't see it because it's such a slow build up that by the time they get to that, they think that looks like muscles.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, where do you stand on Synthol in general?
I think it's a good tool. You have to really know your anatomy to use it right. And I took so many anatomy physiology courses. So what I would do is I would use it. I used Esticlean back in the day.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very different.
Very different. But it's still, you need to know the muscle. I did use Synthol a little bit. Oddly enough, it wasn't until after I retired. I was just trying to see what I could do with my arms. I got them up to like 21.5 inches.
Wow. Was that like Trigilli did? He did a video about this a couple weeks ago. He said it's a very temporary thing. You have to keep putting the Synthol in regularly. You do.
Yeah, you do. It gets reabsorbed, but just not quickly.
Okay.
So I was using the pump and pose. I got a massive infection from it.
Really?
I ended up in the hospital having to get my arm cut open and all that.
Wow.
That was the end of that for me. But I'll tell you what, when you used it right, I used a little in my outer tricep head and a little in the body. It really brought out the fullness. And it's a subtle thing. It doesn't, a little is a lot with this, because it's just a subtle little emphasis on the outer tricep head makes it go from not popping to popping. But if you do too much, you end up looking like Ernie Taylor.
Oh, Ernie is nothing compared to these Brazilian guys. I mean, I used this. He just passed away. Whatever his name was. I'm sorry. They called him Brazilian Hulk.
Yeah.
He was in a couple documentaries about Synthol and body
He's a
dysmorphia.
good example of what I'm talking about. I mean,
Perfect example.
he didn't see it. He
I
thought
don't
it
think
looked good.
if you're on Instagram, there's a few Instagram pages just dedicated Synthol freaks. I wish I knew a couple off the top of my head, but they think they look good. They're strutting around.
They think they look good.
It's usually Brazil. They're usually strutting around like in a mall with a stringer tank top on, with the traps up to their earlobes,
right?
And the arms are like the biceps are hanging down to the wrist because they're.
And then the little spindly forearms, like they don't think. Well, if I had upper arms this big, my forearms would probably be bigger too.
Did anyone ever try? I wonder, did anyone ever try? No, I don't think you should either. I don't think you should do it at all. But I wonder, is the tissue, because your forearms are like the calves, they're so dense, the muscle tissue.
I think the nerve endings and the blood vessels make it very contraindicated there.
So that's why they don't.
I don't know, but yeah, it's ridiculous looking, and everyone in the world can see it but them. So that's another form of bigorexia.
That would be probably taken to its greatest extreme would be the Synthol guys, because they're getting a look to the muscles that's even like Big Ramy. He can't get that because he's limited by.
They're even exceeding that.
Right. It's far beyond the proportions of what any amount of steroids and training and food could do, even with spectacular genetics. It's an exaggerate. It's a caricature of muscularity.
It is a caricature that doesn't require work.
But they're looking in the mirror and thinking, wow, this looks great. And they're probably still thinking, but I'm not big enough yet.
Like the people who are covered head to toe in tattoos.
How dare you.
Didn't start off with you being covered head to toe. Like a sleeve is one thing, but when your entire body now looks like 90% of your body is covered in third-degree burns.
Yeah.
And you can't even make out like what the details are. And it just looks like like rotting flesh.
I mean, they do that. And then again, I turn to Instagram for a reference point, because I follow pages of like body modification just for shits and giggles. Cause I'm like, how could somebody do that? So you'll see people that have done what you said, head to toe, every inch, every millimeter of skin is tattooed.
Every millimeter.
Then there's piercings. Then they have fake horns implanted. Fake horns,
yeah, right.
They tattoo their eyeballs now. Have you seen that?
I've seen people with all of these things. Now that is something that is definitely the snowball effect over time, and it didn't start off there. There's no way that their goal in the beginning was to end up there.
Right. Yeah, I would imagine they probably got like a little butterfly and go, you know what?
This is addictive. Yeah.
One says mom over here. So I guess my question to you is, in your opinion, when is bigorexia a problem that would need to be addressed, when somebody probably should get some sort of counseling or therapy? Something needs to be done. At what point is it that bad?
I think it's an individual matter. When it becomes something that you can no longer tolerate, it's not hurting anyone else. It's just hurting yourself. So at some point you have to see it as a problem. The problem is that most of the people with bigorexia don't see it as a problem. They don't even think they have a problem. They don't even think they're big. So it's going to be hard to convince them to go get help for something that doesn't seem to require help.
True. I mean, I can remember, you've probably known guys, the perma bulkers. I've known a few of them that I think everyone I can remember, I think they're all dead. Yeah. Everyone.
Name some perma bulkers.
Oh God, there was a guy named Abel back in Pasadena. They never competed, so you wouldn't know who they were. But I've known guys. I see. Just to give an example of the bigorexia, there was a big Mexican dude at a gym I used to train at in Pasadena, California. They had heat waves there before the rest of the country knew what heat waves were. It would be 100 degrees outside. This guy would walk in the gym with 2 sweatshirts on, full sweatpants, sweat pouring down his face. He would never, ever, he had a string tank.
No, that's a disorder.
He cut the neck out so you could see he had a tank top underneath, but I never once saw what this guy looked like, ever. He had to be about 350, 400 pounds. He was tall, wide.
But he would never show off the fruits of his labor.
Never. And he always talked about competing, but he's like, I'm not big enough yet.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude.
I've known people like that. Their physiques are phenomenal. They're always covered up. They're always going to do a show.
Yeah.
But they never do.
And then you get the little peanuts.
What is that? What is that mechanism, dude? What is that mental mechanism?
That's big. I think that's exactly what we're talking about. I think that's bigorexia. They look in the mirror and said, nope, I'm still not big enough.
Victor Richards. Well, he was always showing off what he had, but he never competed.
Right. Nigerian, by the way.
Why does Kai Green always cover up in the gym? He's never uncovered.
That's a good question. I actually got to train with Kai in April at the Redcon gym in Boca Raton. He was on my bucket list. One of the people I always want to train with.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's hot out there. It's Florida. It was like 90, 95 outside. Always had the hoodie on. He always wears tights. I've never even seen him in shorts. Tights aren't that you're not going to sweat to death in tights, but the hoodies, he would not ever. He got all pumped up, and I talked to him about it. I think we even got it on camera because Redcon did a video, and he says he doesn't like the attention. He can't really focus on his training if he sees people staring at him. He takes his shirt off for certain video shoots and certain posts he makes, but most of the time he's all covered up. And with some guys, I think maybe it is humility, like they don't want to show off or whatever. But I think in most cases, they don't feel like they're worthy of being seen.
I don't know. I think it goes deeper with him. I don't know. My brother told me that when he was filming Day in the Life, Kai Green, and he was in his apartment in Brooklyn, it was like 100 degrees out. He had no air conditioning or fans on in the apartment. In fact, he had all the burners on in the kitchen, even though he was only using one of them to cook. And it was 1,000 degrees in there, and he had his hoodie and his sweats on. And my brother was dying in a t-shirt and shorts and just didn't understand how he could do this or why he would do this. I never got really a good answer from him.
Yeah, I love Kai, but it's hard to get an answer out of him. He'll answer, but it's not going to be the question you asked.
His pool runs deep, and you'll never be able to swim in it.
I'm stealing that.
You just won't.
Man. So I guess, bigorexia is, as far as I'm concerned, it's a problem if it's going to impact your health. And I think for a lot of people who are not as fortunate as you and I, it will impact a lot of people's health, because trying to reach the size, if you're chasing big Rami size and you're a regular human being, what are you going to do to get there? I could say what's it going to take to get there, but there's nothing that's going to get you there anyway. But in your little delusional brain, how far are some people going to be willing to go? What risk are they going to be willing to take? Will they take a gram of tren a week, 2 grams of tren a week? Will they take, 3-4 anadrols a day? Will they do 100 units of insulin a day? Will they?
I'd say yes to all of that. And you can't save someone from themselves until they're ready to save themselves. You cannot be the one to force it on someone who still feels like they're doing the right thing. And they do. They feel like they're doing the right thing because this is, I'm willing to, no stone unturned. And that's all you see, all the positive messages about not giving up and leaving no stone unturned and doing what you have to do to succeed. And then you look into the cycles of these guys and you see them running 10 grams of shit. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're going to run 10 grams of shit.
So getting back to the original one I was talking about, when I was copied and pasted off the interwebs, they said it could be considered a form of addiction. I actually do think it is a form of addiction. I've been accused many times by people who have no picture and no posts. These people that make the accounts.
Right. Those people.
Oh, I can't stand those guys. I assume they're all males. But they said you're addicted to steroids, and I'll usually block them or come back with some smart ass remark. But if I really think about it, I'm kind of am addicted to steroids, because what would I do without it?
There's a little grain of truth there that you don't want to hear.
It is true. I am addicted to steroids, because what's an addiction? It's something you can't live
don't
without.
deny it. Don't deny it. Say, yeah, I am. Well, what are you addicted to? You're addicted to something. True. And it's probably not good for you. We all have like I said earlier, we all have our poison. What is yours?
Yeah.
Look deeply into yourself. Figure it out. You're doing something that's going to kill you.
Yeah. And I guess the other argument, or the other point of discussion might be, and we can both probably relate to this. Who would we be? What would our lives be like if we had none of this muscle anymore? If we just dropped, if we went back to, I don't know what I would weigh, what I would look like.
When I came out of the hospital, I got a taste of that.
So what was that? So that's a good example then. What was that like?
I felt awful. I mean, all my shirts were hanging on me. My face was drawn. My neck had like this old man strings on it, like all inside of a week. And I was just minuscule. The good news was I was shredded, like see-through. So it wasn't like I was skinny fat, which really would have fucked me up.
True.
But I was 200 pounds.
Wow.
For the first time in decades and decades.
And it wasn't fun.
No, I felt so small and insignificant. Then I had to go back to work at the new gym, which is a hardcore gym that me and my friends opened, Diamond State Iron, which is hardcore. And I had to go in there looking like a puny, and they didn't all know my story. They didn't know I was in the hospital. So they just probably thinking, what the hell is Dave doing?
Yeah.
Maybe he's doing a show.
So people will, you like to look this way. I like to look this way, but people will say, why do you need to look this way? You're not competing anymore. There's no reason. There's no valid reason for you to still carry
that's
all
bullshit.
that
How
muscle.
come competing is the only valid reason? Why is that? Why we were bodybuilders long before we stepped on the stage. I know I was.
Yeah.
And I was a bodybuilder long after I finally stepped on stage. I mean, that's just who I am, and that's who you are. That's what makes us tick.
Yeah.
I have a problem with people who think the only valid reason to do this and to diet and to train is to do a show. Far from it.
So
my presence in a room, once you experience that, it's hard to go back.
Yeah,
it really is.
I mean, I have no reason. There's no reason. I don't make any money off my physique. I never have.
Right.
Never will. I'm never going to be as big as these guys I'm around anyway. It's not like I'm trying to be Jay Cut, these guys, Kai. That's a different.
But it satisfies you.
I like being as big as I am. I wish I could have got bigger, but I wouldn't want to be a lot smaller than I am now. Yeah. And, I've had this argument with people, and I put it this way to them. Say there's a 50-year-old woman. Say she works out, stays trim, gets her lashes done, her nails done, her hair done. She's got the Botox, she's got the fillers, gets her lips done. Every 20-year-old, 25-year-old guy in the world would still want to bang her. I know that's not the worth of a human being, but she's still hot, and that makes her feel great. You take another 50-year-old woman who basically gave up 20, 30 years. Let's say she gave up 20 years ago on trying to look good. Her hair is completely gray, wrinkles. She's done nothing about it. She's got the jowls. It's a saggy, like women when we were kids. A 50-year-old woman was
old, right?
That was old because they weren't trying to look good.
Grandma.
They were moms, grandmothers. They weren't trying to keep up an appearance or trying to look attractive anymore.
Things are different now. But
if you're a woman in that category, still trying to look great. My wife's 51. She's slamming hot. She's banging hot. And I don't see anything wrong with that. And I don't see how it's so different from a guy in his 50s.
Is it really compromising their health to do all that?
I guess that's
the difference. It's like no one's dropping dead because they had Botox.
True. That's true. Because there's your point. People say your heart, your liver, your kidneys, they're taking a beating. You're taking years off your life, dude, by being on all this gear and just being bigger in general, because we know big dogs don't live anywhere near as long as small dogs. So why are you taking these years off your life? And you can get into the line. Would you rather live, 50 years as a lion or 150 years as a lamb?
Right. I was going to use that.
Sorry, I stole that from you.
You just stole it before I could even do it.
It's quality of life.
Exactly. And that's a good question. Right.
So what do you say to that when someone says, Dave, you would have lived a lot longer if you hadn't been a bodybuilder?
That's very, very possible. I hope it's not true. I mean, I do what I can. If you think about all the healthy things that go along with the lifestyle that I lead, the pristine diet most of the year, the gallon of water a day, the vitamins, the minerals, the weight training, the cardio that I do year round. I mean, it's all the only freaking thing that I do that could be detrimental is the gear, but that facilitates everything.
Right. It's a quandary, isn't it?
It really is, And at the end of the day, you just hope that the good and the bad kind of equal each other out and they cancel each other out and you end up, living to 90 anyway.
Well, that was my next question for you. How long? It's a silly question, but how long do you want to live?
I don't want to outlive my health.
Okay.
In other words, I don't want to continue to exist in a state of horrendous health, but I'm alive.
Yeah.
That's not life to me. Life to me is I have, I can move and walk and go places pain-free for the most part. and enjoy my life. That to me is living. I don't want to live to 90 or 100 if I'm decrepit.
That's it. I mean, say I live to 70, 75 or something. I'm already almost 53. So that wouldn't be a whole lot of time left on this earth.
Not a whole lot, no.
But would I rather do that than live another 20 years past that? Let's say to 95. Because people always talk about, I'm going to live to 90. I'm going to live to 100. What if those last 20 years, let's say 15 to 20 years of your life, you're in a nursing home, someone's changing your diaper for you.
Yeah, that's not living.
You can't walk, you're watching TV all day with a bunch of other old farts. I mean, you have no sex anymore. I'd rather be strong, virile, healthy, muscular for a shorter amount of time than be old and decrepit.
Yeah, but then when that day comes, when you are about to die, you'll wish for that extra 20 years. I'm sorry, I
think about death a lot. I really do.
The older you get, the more I do too.
My nephew's wife just died in a fall in her house, just like,
oh
yeah, broke her neck like out of nowhere. So I mean, I've seen people just die suddenly with no warning. I've seen other people linger with cancer. People in my family, we've seen it all. Once you're in your 50s, guys, you've seen a lot of people around you die.
Well, I had a lot of time to reflect on death in the hospital that week, especially in light of the fact that here I had two of the things that a lot of the people who have dropped dead have had.
Kidney
and colitis.
Oh, colitis, yeah. But as far as you know, your heart's fine.
Yeah. They did a lot of tests on that.
So the thing about death is it's coming for all of us someday. Nobody's going to live forever. And we're so in denial of that. I'm in denial of that because I don't know what happens when you die. I have my theories.
I have my theories as well. And it's where were you? What year were you born?
1969.
Where were you in 1967?
2 years away from being born.
did you, what were you thinking? What were you doing? What were you?
Oh, I didn't exist.
Did you exist? You didn't exist.
No. But will I exist after I die?
Existing? No.
You think you should blink out?
I think we're made out of the earth. We're made out of the planet. The food becomes the body becomes the embryo is a baby, and then it goes back to being organic dust again.
That's the biological component of it.
The planet, yeah. So I'll become part of a bird that eats me. I'll become part
You don't believe that you have some soul, spirit, essence, energy, something that's eternal?
That's so egotistical.
Really? You don't think all humans are imbued with that?
I think we're taking ourselves way too seriously when we start to think that, number one, we have a soul that lives on forever. Why? Who needs our soul forever? Like, who the fuck are you, Ron, that your soul needs to be around for? Who am I? I don't need so much. My soul needs to be around forever. And I certainly don't subscribe to the heaven and hell bullshit. Because I really don't think that God watches over each and every one of us, and because there's just too little evidence for that.
Okay.
So, it's basically an organic thing that we're made out of the earth, and then we go back to being the earth.
So if that's what you believe, then you would want to live as long as possible because you don't believe there's anything after that anyway.
No. But by the same token, you don't exist, so who gives a shit?
Oh, man. Gosh, this is getting really complicated. I thought we were talking about
this stuff, man.
Muscle dysmorphia.
I think about this stuff.
I do too, because it's inevitable, and especially when I hear about someone die or someone I know, someone I'm related to, that really brings it home. It's like, oh shit, yeah. Because I'm in total denial of death. Like, I can't die. It's just like, how could...
And then you're going to be dead forever.
I do believe that we're eternal in some form.
Well, you have to, because that comforts you.
It does. I mean, like, the heaven thing would be the most comfortable thing.
You think about there being a heaven and their God and a reward and all this stuff. It all placates us and helps with the fear of death. And the less you can think of death as being this final thing where you just don't exist, that's horrifying. Of course, you want to come up with some reason that can't be true.
Yeah.
And so we've placated ourselves by coming up with these various theories that help us get through the day.
I honestly can't decide which is a more horrible scenario: blinking out of existence and there's nothing. You have no your consciousness is just wiped out. That doesn't even make sense to me, because I have a consciousness now. Where does it go?
Yeah.
A dog or a cat.
It goes back to where it was 3 years before you were born. 3 years after you die, it'll be the same.
Or let's say I wasn't
You're
good.
just this organized matter right now. That's all you are, is this organized matter.
Ah,
And it goes from order to disorder. That's entropy, right?
yeah.
So everything goes from order to disorder. So that's called age. And then we age and we go to disorder, and then we eventually just die and then become dust, and then we feed the animals.
Yeah. So I want to try to end this on a useful note for the viewers. Bigorexia, I do believe it's a real thing. I believe I certainly suffer from it. I'm sure I would be diagnosed full-blown case
Full blown.
if Dr. Pope or any of his colleagues ever got a hold of me. And you know, I'm unapologetic about it because I own it. This is who I am. This is what I love to do. I take care of my health, and I'm extremely fortunate in regards to my health. I don't. This is another case of, I'm not advocating. I'm not saying do what I do. No. Don't try this at home, folks.
No, you're not doing that.
You might not be able to be on gear for 30 years and still be okay. You probably won't be. You probably won't be like me. I'm, just like there's some 100-year-old guy out there that's been smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, doing shots of whiskey every day. He's like, well, I'm cool.
The secret to my longevity.
Yeah. It's you have to just be accountable for yourself. You have to be accountable for the people that love you and that count on you, that depend on you. And it's all about taking care of your health. If you're on top of your health, then you're okay. As long as you're truly on top of your health, not just, I'll get blood work done once a year and everything's fine. No, got to get the heart scans.
A lot of guys live in denial of that. They don't want to know the results because they don't want to have to make the appropriate lifestyle adjustments.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I could easily just stop going to doctors and like, everything will be fine, because
you just wish it into existence.
Because I'll be honest, I'm afraid they're going to say, I would stop. If I saw serious problems, I would stop.
That would cause as many problems as it solved.
I would not be happy.
Think about what a mess you'd be if you went off of everything.
I'd still be on TRT. I'd stay on TRT.
What the hell's that going to do, Ron?
Exactly. I mean,
I don't think it'll do much. I think your TRT would have to be about 600 milligrams.
Well, I'm on that's the thing, is like people freak out because I tell them I'm always on 400 milligrams. They're like, oh, you're going to die.
That's baseline for you at this point. Anything below that is off.
They all call that abuse. And, for a lot of people that would be abuse. Their hematocrit, they would be in horrible health after probably 6 months on 400 milligrams straight of test. I'm fine. I am.
Yeah.
And I bump it up. I'll add Deca on it sometimes.
Yeah.
They get mad when I say sometimes in the summer I'll add some Tren, and they're like, oh my God, Tren. Yeah, I know. But,
I get crucified for using that still.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're truly monitoring your health, it's okay. I shouldn't say it's okay. I'm not going to give a blessing for it, but you're not being irresponsible. But if you're being one of those people who avoids the doctors, just in denial, just hopes everything's okay because you don't want to hear the doctor say your kidneys are failing, your heart's this, you got to get off all that shit. And then they're going to go, oh no, I'm 250 pounds. I'll probably be 200 pounds in 6 months if I stop all this shit. And then
definitely will be. Yeah.
And a year after that, maybe I'll be 180. And oh my God, who am I without all this?
Look at Kevin LeBron, how small he gets.
Dude, I remember he's not small now, but I remember seeing him.
I've seen him small.
I saw him one time. He was about 200 pounds.
Yeah.
And he was in a suit and it was hanging off him. And someone said, there's Kevin Levrone. And I looked at it, I said, he looks like Kevin, but that's not Kevin Levrone. I said, it looks a lot like him. And I walked over and I'm like, oh my God, that is Kevin.
And he didn't care. He would go down to nothing. And then it just doesn't matter. He can come back in a heartbeat, and he know it.
Yeah. So he's somebody, but he could, and like Dorian's another example of someone. Dorian's lost pretty much all that muscle. He's cool. He doesn't give a shit.
Doesn't seem to give a shit.
He's living his life. He's friggin' mountain biking and doing ayahuasca, and he's got the hot Brazilian wife. He's living the life.
But he stopped when he still had enough function left.
But not everyone's like that. Not everyone.
No, like look at Ronnie. There's very little function left.
Yeah, Ronnie's still
trying to go in there and be Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had just had like a back surgery. He was like leg pressing again, like a week later in the gym.
Why? It's not for us to understand. But the same mechanism that does that, the same mechanism in his head that is causing him to do that is the reason he was Ronnie Coleman in the first place.
Right. And who am I to judge?
Cannot separate the two. Exactly. Not
I
us.
can't judge. I can't
Never
judge.
achieved anything near what he achieved. So
What,
who the hell are we to talk?
Why are you still training heavy? Why are you still trying to carry all this muscle? You're over 50 years old, dude. Grow. I hear that a lot. Grow up. Grow up. I grew up a long time ago. I don't think I'm getting any, I'm actually shrinking. I'm not getting any taller. But I don't know.
Growing up, it has to do with what makes you tick, man.
Well, I can only imagine all the comments, guys. You can say what you want, and I'll respond to them.
And they will say what they want.
That's what YouTube's for. I encourage it because that's why you can't make a video like this and say nobody say anything. Yeah. Don't say anything bad about me. Don't disagree with me, and don't call me any names or say I'm this or that. You guys, you can do. You're free to. I
don't care
if it's really hurtful. If you hurt my feelings too bad, I might delete your comment. I'm warning you right now, guys. Jeez, Dave. So wow, it's been.
I think we've covered some good stuff, man.
Yeah, this has been good. So I'm going to try to come up with a better name for these because I'd like to do regular talks with you. You're a like-minded individual.
Yeah,
you agree with when you agree with things I say. That means you're smart. So no, but we have a lot in common. We've been around this a long ass time. You even longer than me. Yeah. Which is I don't run into too many people. I'm at that point now where it's rare that I find people who've been doing this longer than me. It's the older you get, that they become scarcer and scarcer, obviously.
The truth, man.
So it's cool to have you.
I've seen so many come and go, so many thousands come and go over the decades. And I just, it's something that's been a constant in my life and always will, it's not a passing fad.
No, I mean, this is it. I'm a bodybuilder for life, whether I probably never will step on a stage again.
Oh, grow up, Ron.
Yeah, grow up. This is my life. I love training. I'm at the gym 3 out of every 4 days. I still eat 5 solid meals and a shake every day. I'm still that nut because I love it. And this is, I just can't imagine living life like a quote unquote normal person. I don't, I have no desire to do that.
And they don't understand that, and they never will.
Yeah, so stop judging me, people.
just like we never understand Coleman and what he does.
Exactly.
They don't.
And I don't understand, I admire the success of people who achieve these things where, for like 4 years, they lived off like ramen noodles and they slept in a broom closet. But I couldn't do that. God bless them. They did it and I
came close to doing that. I used to, when I had no money, I used to go into the Acme and I used to order, I told this story before. I used to order a pound of turkey breast, put it down my pants, and then a loaf of bread and put it in my coat, and then a thing of mustard and put it in my jacket pocket and walk out, buy a pack of gum, and then walk out, and I could feed myself turkey sandwiches for a day.
Wow, that was a brilliant strategy, man.
Until I got caught.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Someone saw me doing it and then said that boy walked out of here with turkey, and they were like, "Oh, don't worry, he comes in here every day. We'll get him tomorrow when he comes in." And sure enough, I came in the next day and did the same damn thing, and they got me.
Wow!
I dropped to my knees and begged for them not to call the cops.
I mean, you were stealing turkey. It wasn't like you were stealing diamond bracelets.
Exactly. I was just trying to live. They let me go. I had to pay it all back though.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we do what we have to when we're starting off, and I actually competed on turkey sandwiches back then.
Wow. I remember competing on canned tuna.
Yeah, canned tuna.
Oh, gross.
Turkey sandwiches. Canned yams I was using for.
Oh, God.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it was all I could afford back in those days was canned tuna and baked potatoes. So I think that was like every meal was tuna and potato, tuna and potatoes.
It's just protein carbs.
Got ripped.
Yeah. Simple.
All right. So Dave, thank you so much, man. This has been a really fun conversation. I want you guys to go to his channel, Pulse, Pulse, Fitness and Bodybuilding. He drops a lot of wisdom on that channel for all you young cats who need to hear it. A lot of experience. I like to say cats, makes me sound cool. So that's it, man. Dave Pulcinella, thank you so much. Appreciate the conversation. We're doing this before Labor Day, so have a great Labor Day. That's the thing we have in America. Nobody knows what it really is, but we all try to go to the beach and get drunk or something. Anyway, that's it, man. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for having me, man.
Ronline Report with Dave Pulcinella, and we'll see you next time.